Chapter -1, Mrs. Platypus. Had enough? Toll asked everyone. No, they shouted. Okay, said Toll, continuing to read. Chapter -1, Mrs. Platypus. That day, Solo and Toll did not meet any special creatures down in the tunnels, but they did have fun, and at around 5 o'clock that afternoon, Toll went to his music lesson with Decker, a brilliant musician. He left Solo and Tilly in their mother's garden, lying in the late afternoon sun. Solo's journal lay open, its yellowing pages covered with his black, messy scrawl. Tilly wanted to hear all about the day's tunnelling, but Solo hadn't had time to write about it yet. What about yesterday? Asked Tilly. I haven't written that either, said Solo. If you want me to read something, you'll have to hear what I wrote this morning, but it's a dream, not an actual adventure. Okay, said Tilly, her hopes rising. She loved hearing Solo's stories, even if they were about dreams. Solo began to read. A lovely day in spring in the wonderful city of Innisfree. Far out, Tilly, this story is why Mum doesn't want you inside the tunnels until you're 8. Solo stopped reading and grinned at his little sister, who narrowed her eyes at him. I don't have any tunnel stories today, so I'm going to write down one of my dreams. This is one from last year. It's a dream I'd forgotten about until today. I was in Mum's garden in my special place when I fell asleep. While I was sleeping, a platypus came to talk to me. She wore wild glasses and I think she had a hairdo. Can a platypus have a hairdo? Anyway, she was very proper and wore a blue suit. Her name was Mrs. Tambreet Platypus. I think I gave her that name, but when I remember parts of the dream, they're blurry. I think she asked me to give her a name, and when I said Tambreet, she laughed and said that Tambreet was a name given to her by an Aboriginal woman in the dream time. Anyway, the platypus wanted to know why I was exploring the tunnels. I said it was just for fun, and then she said I wasn't telling the truth. I felt strange about that and told her that I was doing it for my studies, partly, but also because it's a lot of fun. But she said that I had to ask my real self why I was exploring the tunnels. So I did. And then this knowing came to me, a bizarre sort of knowing when you recognize that something is really true. Right then I realized that it's my mission to explore those tunnels. I'm not sure why, but in that dream and from then on, I knew that I had to find out what was happening in the tunnels and why. That was the end of the dream, and then I woke up. Anyway, Tilly, I have to go now. Toll and I hope to have a wonderful adventure in the tunnels today, and I'll write about it later, just for you. Solo. So when are you going to write about today's adventure? Moaned Tilly. When I have time, said Solo. It won't take long. Nothing much happened. It wasn't as wonderful as we hoped. Tilly was drawing pictures on Solo's back, and the combination of that and the warm sun rays started to make him feel sleepy. Solo buried his face into the mossy grass as he tried to guess the shapes being penciled onto his back by Tilly's scratchy little fingers. The sun suddenly became really hot, as if it was trying to warm up everything before it started to sink beyond the mountain that overlooks Innisfree. Tilly asked to look at the maps that detailed all the tunnels her brothers had discovered. As she and Solo gazed at the maps, Tilly asked if there would be any discoveries left to be made by the time she was allowed to go into the tunnels. Solo said that he hoped so. Tilly looked glad. She badly wanted to name a tunnel after herself. The Tilly Made You Tunnel, or maybe just the Tilly Tunnel. She wasn't sure. Please can I hear the one about the place deep inside the earth, she said. The one with the living creatures, please. You've heard it 1,000 times, said Solo, yawning. After some more pleading, he looked into the desperate eyes of his little sister. After some more pleading, he looked into the desperate eyes of his little sister and decided it couldn't hurt to read it to her again. Just one more time, though, because you can read it for yourself any time you like. Yes, but I love listening to your voice, said Tilly, snuggling a little closer to Solo. Do you think the living creatures are real? They might be, and we might just meet them one of these days, he said. He whispered, his eyes wide. Solo turned the Solo turned to the journal entry for the 1st of April the year before and began to read. There once was a place. At least I think there was. Yes, there was a place. No, there is a place deep inside the earth. I know it's there because I've been there in my dreams, and today I went there again. I think it was a dream, but I'm never sure. It always seems so real, more real than anything I've ever done before. So who knows? It might be a dream or it might be real. The first time, how I got there, I can't explain, but one minute I was lying on the ground in our garden looking at the clouds, and next thing I was there. The place was round and golden, as if it was made of light. It was full of creatures with wings. In fact, everyone there had wings, even me. Big feathery wings coming out of our backs. Mine felt as if they'd been there forever. Having them on my body was great, like it feels when you get one of those itches and you can't quite find the right spot to scratch, and then you hit on it and it feels better than anything. We were all talking, but it wasn't like normal talking. Still, I knew what the creatures were saying and they could understand me, but we weren't using words. It was the strangest thing. We could understand one another just by being together. We were sensing things through our antennas. Sorry, through our feathers. Each wing was like some kind of super antenna. Tilly stopped Solo. Like telepathy, she asked, or magic messaging? Sort of, said Solo, but we were saying so much more than anyone can say with words. We were just knowing and being with one another. But it was like talking, but not to make sense of anything. Tilly nodded. Go on, she said. It was wild, but at the same time it felt so normal. And the noise. The place was full of so much muted sound, from all the wings ruffling and touching and stretching. It was a low, deep humming like silken thunder pounding on a sky made of sand. There's no other noise like it, not anywhere. It was beyond amazing. Then, over in one corner, there was a door and an area like a hospital with all these sick people and creatures who looked like they were dying. They had wings, but they were all matted and muddy, and some of the wings were cut off and sort of bleeding, or there were feathers missing, heaps of them. It was really sad, except that you couldn't seem to feel sad for long. The sick ones kept being brought in from somewhere outside. The creatures with healthy wings would go over to them, and if they touched their wings to the sick ones, they'd be well again. And when they became well, their wings would heal up straight away. It was incredible. The smiles on their faces were to die for. And then the healed ones would move aside and start helping. Everyone was moving around so much that you couldn't tell who'd been sick and who hadn't. Tilly's eyes lit up. It's a real place, she said. I can feel it. Solo continued. With all the movement, no one got in anyone's way. It was like a big dance in that warm, delicious place. The rustling of all those feathers made everyone feel excitement. It was in the air. We all felt as if we might burst. I was so full up on my insides, the excitement kept whirling around faster and faster, like a wild thing. My whole body was smiling. The smile was especially on my face, but also on my hands and even on my back. And the smile kept getting wider and wider until I was just a gigantic smile, a smile on someone else's face, a huge face. Something was about to happen. Somebody was about to happen. I knew it. And then I couldn't believe it, but it was really happening. I was being pulled backwards out of the golden light, away from the creatures and away from the somebody. Everything got blurry and misty, and instead of the warm air and the feathery brushes, All I could feel was something hard and prickly, and instead of feeling light, I felt heavy. Then I realized that the hard stuff was the earth beneath me and the prickly stuff was grass. At first I closed my eyes and refused to wake up and refused to be awake, but the amazing wing noise was moving away from me, and I could hear the sound of the bush and cars going past and birds. I was back in our garden. I wondered if it had all been a dream, but I could still feel where my wings had been. I could smell the air of that place, and I felt as if I'd been torn away from somewhere that was more real than anywhere I'd ever been. Tilly rolled onto her stomach and sighed deeply. "It sounds so good," she whispered. "It was wonderful," said Solo, getting up. "You're not going in, are you? I want to talk some more," said Tilly, rolling onto her back and staring up at her brother. "I've got to help Mum. You could help her too, you know." Solo reached down to tickle Tilly. "I hate jobs," she said, pulling a face. "You hate jobs?" asked Solo in mock horror. Tilly screwed up her nose. "So do I," whispered Solo. Tilly leapt up and did a handstand. Solo laughed. He loved his wild little sister, and he knew that one day she'd become an excellent tunneler. As he walked inside, he couldn't stop thinking that something exciting was going to happen in those tunnels soon.